Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tokyo FinTech Podcast. This is episode number 14. And today we welcome Nir Netzer, one of the founders of FinTech-Aviv, the Israeli FinTech Association, and currently chairman of the board.
Hello, Norbert. How are you?
Hello, Nir. I'm very well.
As you saw, we had an outstanding turnout for the FinTech celebration here in Israel.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. You had the annual summit, huge success. What did you see? What was new this year?
It was outstanding, really. I mean, we had more than 800 attendees hosted in 2 floors. It was really an superb content for more than 40 global speakers on the stage. We hosted around 9 panel discussions, several keynotes, several fireside chats with the high-level executives from the financial industry, including Visa and TD Bank, and really some high-level content. And I think it was super interesting for our audience to take part in this, to participate. We had a startup competition with 9 startups pitching their solutions. 3 winners that will go with us to the Landed FinTech conference in New York, and really tremendous success. It's 2 weeks after that, and we're still trying to follow up on all the leads we gathered, and to enjoy the wave that stayed after this, the aftershock effect, which is great. This was a really huge success.
It's a great outcome. How often have you done this already?
No, we did it only one time in the past, but we're planning definitely to keep on doing it in the future, every year, probably during the FinTech Week in February or the beginning of March. Next year, by the way, we already set the date. It's going to be on March 1st, Monday to Wednesday. It's going to be a 2 days conference and 1 day B2B and matchmaking sessions. It's going to be more robust than what we've done so far.
Wow, already planning 1 year ahead. That's great.
Definitely. After you see the feedback from this kind of production, you understand that you need to secure the dates for next year.
Like the 3 winners for the startup competition, in which area are they operating?
So one was InsurTech, the other one was authentication, something in between authentication to risk assessment, because it's a face recognition startup that, according to the shape of your face, can assess the risk of a borrower when you're lending money. According to multiple parameters in your face shape, they can evaluate the risk of lending money to you. And yes,
is that on the basis of a photo or like a video? Does it need a lengthy period of observing me?
Photo will be enough.
Really?
Yes, outstanding solution. So this is the authentication risk assessment solution. By the way, also the InsurTech solution was very interesting, because the InsurTech solution is half InsurTech, half IoT. Because, for example, they know, according to the usage of your, for example, toothbrush, how long you're brushing your teeth and what will be the premium for your teeth insurance, for tooth insurance, for example. Because they have all the data and all the information they need to understand how long you're doing it, how good you're doing it, and accordingly to evaluate the risk of you need to see a doctor. So this is the InsurTech solution. And the third solution that won the startup competition was a compliance startup that allows messaging, text messaging, in between bankers and their end clients in a secured environment and archived and recorded environment, but the environment still stays what the end client prefer. So if you're used to text on WhatsApp and your banker has to, up until today, had to use the bank system to send messages to you, now with this system, the banker can send you a message secured and archived through WhatsApp. And this is a tremendous achievement, because GDPR and also the AML and the really harsh compliance and regulation on this communication between bankers and their end client is changing all the time. But this solution actually allows the banker and the end client to communicate as they used to communicate in a seamless way, but everything is compliant to the new regulation.
Fantastic. Sure, you'll have fun with them in New York.
Yeah, it's going to be super nice. The Landed FinTech conference, it's the 3rd year we're collaborating with them. I've been with the delegation from Israel to San Francisco to their conference a year ago. And then on last September, I went also to UK with a different delegation. And this upcoming delegation on May probably will be our biggest one so far.
So the FinTech-Aviv, the Israeli FinTech Association, you founded in 2014, is that right?
Yes, it's 6 years that we're running the organization now. Yeah, it was quite early. FinTech terms. And basically we decided to initiate the association to support the entrepreneurs, to help Israeli technology export from Israel to different countries. And we understood with time that we have something very valuable, which is the network, the matchmaking abilities between Israeli startup and technologies and potential clients overseas, banks, insurance companies, investment houses, credit card bureaus. They're all interested in Israeli fintech and cybersecurity technologies. We help them to track down the best technologies for them to either integrate in their day-to-day operations or to invest in them. That's also where there is a huge investment appetite coming from global financial institutions and corporate VCs, global venture capital arms in Israeli fintech. We help these guys mitigate the gaps and meet each other.
As you said, 2013 was certainly very early in the fintech cycle. Maybe the fintech word didn't even exist at that time, right? What made you create the association at that point?
Our friend, a mutual friend of ours and partner, Mr. Daniel Abrams, he came from the UK with a fintech trend in his mind, saying, this is a great wave in the UK and I want to establish payment company. And we said, okay, great, Daniel, establish your payment company. And he founded currencytransfer.com. And he said, okay, what do we do next? I mean, how do we help companies like myself and different individuals, entrepreneurs to basically get the attention of global financial institutions and global crowds and basically show and exhibit what we have in Israel in terms of technology and the level of technology and innovation? How do we demonstrate our capabilities to the world? And we said, okay, let's build a community. This is the softest activity you can initiate, which is non-binding in a way. And we initiated just one event, our first event in a bar. We had 40 entrepreneurs in the room. It was very nice. We had CEO of eToro, Yoni Asya back then, speaking to the crowd. And it was a very nice event. And ever since then, we kept on doing that. Every couple of months, we hosted a different event. Now we have behind us more than 50 events, if I'm not mistaken. It was an outstanding potential, and we saw it. That was fast-growing community. Now we have 8,000 people in our community. Every event, we're hosting in between 300 to 400 participants, and our annual summit is double the net. So it takes time to establish something like this, but eventually you see that if you share values and if you really contribute your share as much as you can in terms of content, in terms of networking, to create a vibrant discussion around the table that all the players are enjoying, we really want to push forward, and it eventually, it turned out on the best way.
Yeah, amazing. Congratulations. Really well done. Israel, of course, is startup nation, and there's lots happening across all the different industries. How do you compare what's happening in fintech and the strength and momentum behind fintech with other areas like cybersecurity? Obviously, is on top in Israel, but also you mentioned IoT and so on. Where does fintech stand relatively to these other industries within Israel?
I have to say that fintech is very dominant in Israel. If we'll take $8.5 billion that were invested in Israeli startups in general on 2019, almost $2 billion were invested in fintech. So it's more than 20% from investments that are shifted basically to fintech. So fintech is very dominant, and probably we'll see that the maturity of startups in the fintech field is quite impressive in Israel. Because if we'll see the average round of a high-tech company, which is non-fintech, will be around $15 million. But for a fintech company, the average round will be almost double than this, $28 million. So we'll see that there's a maturity, less startups, only 64 deals, only 64 investments in 2019. So it's less startups that are tracking the capital, but each and every round is quite big. So these are pre-IPOs companies. These are mature companies with ready-to-market products, serving hundreds, thousands of clients sometimes overseas. A very interesting piece of information is that 90%, 90, of the startups in Israel are exporting their solutions. Yep. So Israel is not considered to be a market at all, hardly 9 million citizens. So we're not a market also in the entrepreneur's eyes. when exporting these solutions elsewhere, obviously you need to comply and you need to be regulated to different markets. And there are some challenges, and the capital is coming from foreign investors. We see that 73% from the capital is coming from global investors. So it's only 27% coming from local investors in Israel. So Israel is not considered to be a capital market at all. It's a tech powerhouse, but not a capital market. So fintech is quite dominant as per your question. And I have to say that probably cybersecurity as well, biotech, agrotech, etc. If we'll try to analyze why is that, why fintech is booming in such a way in Israel, I think that there is a lot of connection to cybersecurity success in the world, to Israeli cybersecurity success in the world. Because take, for example, companies such as Checkpoint and some others that really made it in a global scale. And I think that these cybersecurity outstanding solutions that are available out there, both to financial institutions and to maybe also governments that are coming out of Israel and sprouting from Israel, I think that they built a very good reputation for Israeli tech in general. And then came fintech with a tremendous wave in 20, maybe 12, 13, 14, right when everybody rode on the back of PayPal as the first fintech company and their success. I think that the awareness started to arouse. And when the awareness to fintech started to be bigger exposure in the world. So I think that the Israeli tech scene also understood, and more entrepreneurs started building fintech solutions.
On the inbound capital side, you said, so 2 billion, 73% comes from abroad. Is there a dominant region? Is that mostly American capital? How much of that is European? How much of that is Asian?
So yeah, we see that the numbers are splitting in between the Americas and Asia. Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers to tell you, but definitely there is a huge investment appetite coming from China, also from Japan. Almost all the Japanese giants has established their Israeli presence already. Marubeni, Sumitomo, and some other Japanese giants that are already based in Israel. Some already initiated and founded their funds in Israel to track for the right Israeli investments. And it's not just for fintech purposes, but also they're targeting mainly fintech investments and some other fields as well.
Let's switch to the Japan angle on that. And it sounds like from the way you describe it, like the FinTech wave started 2012, 14 in Europe and in Israel. The trade relationship between Japan and Israel had been strained for a long time, and there wasn't that much going on. But around the same time, that changed and became much more active and has grown tremendously over the last 6 or 7 years. And so it's almost like these two waves come together and create, don't want to abuse the term, but create a tsunami of activity that goes on between the regions. And is that something you're seeing as well? And do Israeli startups have Japan on their mind, or what different areas are the primary focus? As you say, they're founding to export. What are the first markets they're looking at?
So it's a good question. I have to say that the lowest hanging fruit for Israeli startups probably wouldn't be Asia. Several reasons for that. I think that if you take China as a case study, it's very hard and challenging to comply with Chinese regulation, and there's a lot of, it's hard to expect this market. Even though it's a huge market, I think that Israeli technology companies are avoiding it. If you analyze the other parts of Asia or Southeast Asia, and obviously also Japan, yes, there is a huge interest in these markets. Again, excluding China, there's huge interest in these markets, but I still think that it makes it very challenging, the time difference, the difficulties that a young startup is facing, like lack of personnel, small team, and if you need to commute and fly several hours to serve your client, this will be challenging. And that means that I think that the lowest hanging fruit is still Europe. We see that in Europe, there is one set of regulation, which is easy to comply. It's quite similar to what we know in Israel. I think that the time difference, which is almost irrelevant, level of maturity of the players in Europe to accept Israeli fintech solutions, and the willingness to work with Israel and with Israeli solutions Also, the governmental relationship we have there with the embassies and with the foreign offices we hold in Europe, it's quite easy to work with Israeli startups and to export Israeli tech into countries in Europe. And then from one region to another, you penetrate the rest of the countries in Europe. So you can start in the UK, or you can start in France, you can start in Spain or in different markets. And then from there, go and spread your solution in Europe in general. I think that the maybe next country or next territory after Europe will be the USA. But over there, you also have very challenging situation when you have more than 40 different set of regulations for different states. There are different regulations you need to comply with. Let's not forget that fintech is a highly regulated market. If it's AML from the one hand and the SEC from the other hand, offering to investors all kinds of investments, also in that aspect is a bit tricky in the USA when you need to be a broker-dealer, licensed broker-dealer. So there are several challenges with working with the American market, exporting and selling the technologies and for raising capital, which I think that these specific challenges makes Europe the lowest hanging fruit for Israeli technologies. But then obviously, yes, there is a huge interest in Japan and Asian market and also in American markets. It's just that I think that the first go-to market will be Europe.
That makes total sense. I mean, you've personally been to Japan quite frequently over the last couple of years. What is your impression of the Japanese landscape as far as fintech is concerned?
If you're asking about the fintech solutions that I saw in Japan, I have to say that I wasn't exposed to many innovations over there, because my purpose in my trip were to showcase Israeli innovations to global financial institutions there. So I'm not exposed, I'm not to the level of technology that is running in Japan. With that, in different conferences in Asia, when I was visiting both Singapore FinTech Festival and in different conferences in the region, including Hong Kong, I saw several Japanese startups that were quite convincing. As much as it goes to deep tech, and this is something that's quite similar to Israel. This is my take on this. As much as it goes, such as deep tech, like blockchain, maybe also cybersecurity, AI, machine learning, neural networks, etc., neural networks-based solutions, for example, for trading, capital markets, wealth management, what we call today wealth tech, even quantum computing. I think that Japanese have a certain advantage in these areas. It's quite similar to super sophisticated engineers that we're basically educating here in Israel. I think that the level of education in Japan, the tech education in Japan, is similar to this. And it's similar to the different territories we see around the globe. Also in Ukraine, you'll be able to see that, in Russia sometimes, when they have really top engineers. I think that Japan is one of these markets when the level of education of the technological professions is really high, and this supports the deep tech development.
And to be fair, as you said, your primary objective is to bring Israeli solutions to Japan or to the region overall. Maybe the better question then is, what are the areas where we've seen interest? What are the companies that you showcased here, the type of technologies where you see demand and companies want to engage with you on those?
So there are many examples. I had a very good trip to Tokyo on the last time I was there. I had more than 20 meetings with global financial institutions. They're all well-known and familiar. You'll know all the names. They're all looking for different either payments, authentication, cybersecurity. Even the insurers between them are looking for insurtech solutions, AI-based underwriting, automatic underwriting. And this is a very interesting space. So I think that really all the big players in Japan are looking to integrate or to invest in Israeli technologies and to strengthen the relationship between Israel and their organization in Japan, either by having local entity here in Israel that allows them to better scout for solutions, or at least by having a representative that is visiting Israel quite often for tracking down the right solutions for them. The interest is huge, and it's coming from all directions.
Yeah, that's so also Deloitte, who's sponsoring the Tokyo FinTech meetups. Though they're a global organization and they clearly have a Deloitte office in Israel, they also have a Japanese Deloitte representative in Israel to be able to connect the markets much more closely. So I don't think they have this in too many regions. And so that's standing out a bit, signifies the interest that exists in that market, really.
Right. We collaborate with Deloitte Catalyst as well. They are our partners for FinTech-Aviv for the second year in a row now. They are enjoying our partnership in a very good way, and we enjoy their values and what they contribute to us. This is a very good and healthy relationship, and I think that it's a very constructing discussion that we're having, bringing all the players around the same table for having this fintech discussion with the service providers, with the fintech giants, with the financial players and banks and financial institutions, and with the tech companies. This is an outstanding discussion that creates a really good brainstorm and sums up with very good results.
Exactly. And in the end, fintech is an ecosystem or a platform play, right? It's more than just one company at this point. And to that extent also, do you see in your market and what the startups doing, the fintech term branching out into other industries? So we had seen like emotional recognition, similar to what you described on the authentication side, emotional recognition software that probably came more out of the traditional retail brick and mortar space to see whether people are happy, angry, depressed, or so, but also these technologies being applied now in financial services organizations. And so financial technology becomes a cross-industry backbone.
Yeah, I agree. FinTech is a changing definition, actually. It's an expanding definition. If nowadays we see RegTech and compliance as part of FinTech, and sometimes we considered PropTech as part of FinTech, we see that all the GAFA companies, the Amazon, the Google, Facebook, they all have their FinTech aspect, either with Apple Pay or cryptocurrencies such as Libra held by Facebook, or Amazon Pay or Google Pay. They're all part of this game. So yes, we see cross-industry changes, and we see that different areas are basically taking part in FinTech as well. And I think that the rise of challenger banks, such as Revolut and N26 in Europe, and different challenger banks that are currently serving millions of clients, either in the US or in every market, we see that. This is a tremendous trend. And we'll see this trend, I think, in the next coming years, also taking, I think it will take a bigger and bigger part. These companies or banks, challenger banks, will onboard more and more clients. There probably will be younger and younger clients that care less from the brand, and the old-fashioned JP Morgan brand that gave comfort to maybe our parents is becoming irrelevant with time, because N26, which is maybe the new player in town, which is much more chic and cool, is replacing it. And that's what the youngsters are looking for. And this cross-industry changes is also happening much thanks to this trend, because now N26, as a tech company that serves its client as a bank, need to integrate many different solutions. They're not only fintech solutions. And if you'll take an example, or we'll try to figure out if, for example, Uber is a fintech or not. So yeah, you pay your taxi driver by using the app. Is there a fintech component there? Absolutely.
It's interesting you mentioned Uber, because I think it was just last week that MUFG, one of the three mega banks here, put $700 million into Grab, which is the Southeast Asian version of Uber, and exactly for the reasons that you described as well, right? They want to get access to the client base and to the payment channels as a distribution path for additional financial products. So there's certainly convergence happening.
In this regards, also, Norbert, I think that MUFG, as the Mitsubishi operator, obviously, they have a huge interest in expanding out of the automotive industry to different industries. And I think that their way to take part in the general tech industry is much relies on both fintech and cybersecurity and different solutions they're involving in their day-to-day banking operations and others. So I think it's very interesting to watch their steps as well.
As you also said before, IoT comes into play, right? Autonomous driving technology, and you're ending up with your self-driving bank in the end. We haven't covered blockchain or crypto at all. What is the scene there like in Israel?
After the ICO hype came on 2018, and then in 2019 we had the STO mini hype, a security token offering instead of the initial coin offering that was basically a regulated ICO. We see that crypto is maybe taking less important place or less dominant place in fintech. And I think that Facebook move with Libra, for example, just, it shows that you need to do something that related to crypto. You need to be part of this game, but not necessarily to take it forward. I mean, this is a very obvious marker for Facebook to say, hey, we're in this game. With that, they're not saying much. So we understand that crypto is there and it will probably there to stay. With that, it's not the big promise that everybody looked at it and said, okay, it's the next generation of money. We're not there yet, and I'm disregarding what happened to Bitcoin and to volatility of Bitcoin and what happened to Ethereum and the number of deals you can execute it in a second and how EOS is becoming more and more relevant in this game when they're offering more and more transactions per second. Depends on your infrastructure, obviously. So I'm disregarding the hype and the cryptocurrency as a coin. I'm really disregarding in this discussion because I think that there is much more place to talk about blockchain as an infrastructure for banking apps. And if you'll take blockchain as a technology, as an infrastructure, and build on that tools and technologies and solutions that will allow different banking partners or will allow different banking services to get executed based on these systems with no need in the mediator in the middle. So this is a tremendous achievement. And when you're eliminating the mediator, when you're just by using a certain technology such as blockchain, when you're eliminating the mediator and reducing costs significantly, you're doing something good for the consumers, for the end consumers of banking services. So I think that blockchain is the next promise and is the new thing. And I leave crypto aside from this discussion for 1 second. And in blockchain terms, I think that Israel, as we said before, is a deep tech market. I think that the blockchain developers that we have here in Israel are showing and demonstrating huge success and demonstrating great capabilities in developing different blockchain-based solutions for the banking industry. So we have solutions that are taking care of trade finance in these segments. We have solutions that are blockchain-based and taking care of investments in these segments. We have solutions that are blockchain-based and taking care of agriculture and eliminating the mediators there. So, and definitely investments and trading. Also import, export, documentary credit, etc., which are considered to be very complicated areas, which a lot of paperwork involved. I think that blockchain have a very promising role in this space. And we see that on the rise as well in Israel.
And that's what I love and find super interesting about Israel as a startup nation. This extreme product solution focus that just came through in your answer as well, right? Because there are other countries, other markets that have maybe also lots of technical talent, but it gets wasted a bit on technology outsourcing business, while it really comes across that you're always focused on what is the problem? How can we solve this problem? And what is the product that we can develop based on that and then push this out into the global markets? And it's like that mindset. I don't know if it's natural culturally where this comes from, but I find it fascinating to observe from afar.
I agree, and I think it's many thanks to the fact that we have no natural resources in Israel, nothing to export other than knowledge. And I think that the tech education in a very young stage is definitely helping, including the fact that we're serving in the military, women and men. And sometimes they get the tech education there. Sometimes they get only the entrepreneurial spirit there, which is good enough and definitely helps to initiate your venture and chase your dream. Yeah, I think that some elements are helping Israel to nurture really impressive technology technologies.
And that already addressed my next question almost. It's like, if you're so successful and you're creating so many new ventures, at some point you run into talent scarcity, right? And how do you develop continuous talent that can feed the whole machine? But you described it already that there's a strong focus on early education in technology. Obviously, the military service is very advanced in the cyber defense capabilities, etc. So that just keeps the talent pool fresh. Wonderful, very good impression of Israel.
Yeah, just, for me, it's important to say thank you to my team for executing such a great annual summit, and to our community members, to our annual partners and sponsors, to all the startups that took part, to the judges in the competition. It was really magnificent. In a year from now, March 1st, we'll have our annual summit 2021, and this will be super exciting. It will be a bigger one. I think that, everybody is expecting for it and looking forward to host it. I hope everything will be fine in Asia and the disease won't spread in different places.
Yes. So thank you very much for the conversation, and hope to see you in person next time you're here, or I'll make it to Israel on the way to Europe.
Yes, please do, and keep in touch, Norbert.